Hey, what's up guys? This is Tim from Arm Wrestling Secrets, and today we're going to be working on the best exercises for ulnar flexion. Okay, so let's look at the muscles of the ulnar flexion. Okay, so we've been working last time, or a few times ago, we were working on radial flexion. Okay, now that's the rising of the hand. Okay, now ulnar flexion is the opposite. Ulnar flexion is going the opposite way. So when you're doing like a low hand top roll, you're moving your hand down. Okay, but the main reason that ulnar flexion is actually important is, number one, is stability of the entire wrist. So if this side of the wrist is really weak, okay, and then this side of the wrist is pretty strong, you're gonna have a major imbalance here, okay? So it's all about having wrist strength all around, okay? So as you've seen in my video series, we've done wrist extension, we've done wrist flexion. We're gonna be doing a lot more stuff for all those exercises, but I've shown you some, okay? We've done radial flexion, but we haven't done any ulnar flexion, okay? So let me twist this, let me show you on the box, let me show you why I think ulnar flexion is so important in arm wrestling, and then I'll show you some of the equipment we're gonna use. Okay guys, so let's take a look at why ulnar flexion is so important. Okay, so as I mentioned, ulnar flexion is the opposite of this. Okay, ulnar flexion is this motion. Okay, now here's why it's so important. Okay, now obviously when we're in arm wrestling, traditional arm wrestling, usually we don't want to lose this wrist position. We want to keep the radial flexors strong. So usually in arm wrestling, when your hand is down, that's usually a bad sign, okay? But that's not why I'm trying to build the strength. We're not necessarily gonna be arm wrestling with our hand down very often unless we're doing a low hand top roll, in which case you're not really using this strength as much as you might think. You're just dropping your wrist and rising the bottom part of your hand, okay? So you're not really using as much ulnar flexion as you might think. Where you're using the ulnar flexion is in the hook, and I'll show you exactly why. Okay, now remember a hook position. In a hook, primarily we're using the muscles of the wrist flexor, right? Wrist flexor, that's just what turns your wrist in, okay? But the ulnar flexion, look at this, okay? So from the front. Okay, so when you're doing a hook position, okay, you're hooking. Now, remember, if your hand, think about this. If your arm, this is, let's say this is our arm resting position, your arm's about here, okay? Now, if you just hook from here, your hand's going to be up like that, okay? Now think about this. You want to bring your hook into an offensive position, okay? You don't want to be hooked in a defensive position where your palm is facing up, okay? Then your bicep and your pronator is totally exposed, okay? When you set a hook, and remember, make sure to watch my hook series on the Arm Wrestling Secrets video series. Everything about hooks is in there, but I go over offensive and defensive hooks. Okay, so remember, if you're doing a hook, you want to be in an offensive position. You don't want to have your palm turned up. You want to have your fingers directly to the side, okay? So when you're in a hook position with someone, your fingers should be pointing to the side. If you're winning in a hook, your fingers are to the side. If you're losing in a hook, your fingers are pointed straight up, okay? And that's a huge difference, okay? So the ulnar flexion, this muscle is one of the most important muscles to your hooking strength, and it's probably why your hooking is failing if it's failing, okay? Now, ulnar flexion, the hook and ulnar flexion is what holds the hook, okay? So we're turning the wrist with wrist flexion, and then we're turning into that offensive position with ulnar flexion. You see that there? That's ulnar flexion. The wrist is already flexed. Ulnar flexion, ulnar flexion. Okay, so you're going into your hook. Boom, boom, ulnar flexion. Now, when your wrist is getting rotated out, okay, that's going to be attacking your ulnar flexor and your pronation. Okay, so if your ulnar flexion is really strong and the person's surging against your hand and you can make sure your hand stays down, that is your ulnar flexion. That's your ulnar flexor being strong. Okay, so if you can maintain an offensive position even while your opponent is trying to move you away from that, that may well be because your ulnar flexors are stronger than the other opponent. Okay, so ulnar flexion is extremely important to being able to maintain your hook position. Let's take a look at some of the equipment we're going to use, and then we'll get right into the exercises. Okay guys, so let's take a look at some of the equipment we're going to be using for our ulnar flexion exercises today. We're actually just going to do 2 exercises for ulnar flexion. We're going to do one standing and then we're going to do one stabilized on the stability box. Okay, so the first one, we're going to be using our loading pin, our thin loading pin, okay, and then just some basic weights. I got 10, I got a couple of 5s, I got a couple 2.5s, and then our trusty towel. And then let me show you what we're going to use with the second exercise, and then we'll get right into these moves. Okay, and then for exercise 2 for ulnar flexion, we're actually using another loading pin. I have a couple of 10-pound plates here on the floor, and this is attached to a pulley system, okay? So this is a pulley attachment here. We're going to be using this towel, okay? And then we're actually going to be using the stability box as well to do our hooking aspect of our ulnar flexion. Let's start in the other room in here. We'll start with the loading pin exercise, and let's start right now. Okay guys, so exercise number 1 for ulnar flexion. Okay, so we're going to be using the loading pin, okay, the carabiner, and then we're just using the towel, okay? The towel put through the carabiner. Okay, so this exercise, obviously this time we're working ulnar flexion. Okay, so we're going to be doing this one standing, and then the second exercise we're going to be doing on the stability box. Okay, this one's easier done standing in this particular exercise. Okay, so we're working the muscles of the ulnar flexors. Okay, so look at this. Okay, so I'm going to stand. This is going to hang straight down. I'm grabbing the towel here. Okay, I'm grabbing the towel right here. What we're going to be doing is I'm going to let this down. Okay, and then ulnar flexion, we're working this side of the wrist. Okay, so we're working this way. Okay, that's our exercise this way. So we're working these muscles here. Okay. Flex. Arm is hanging straight. You can see me from a distance here. See, that's our exercise. Hang down, pull, pull. The weight's not going very far. It's a really simple exercise. It's not very easy though, because these muscles aren't particularly strong. So we're gonna hold at the top, hold, hold. It gets hard. Hold, and do as many as you can until you can't lift the weight all the way up. Okay, in terms of repetitions on that one, I'd pick a weight that's heavy enough so you can only get as many as about 10 to 12 repetitions. Okay, you guys, so exercise number 2 for ulnar flexion is going to be using this box, stability box again, as I promised. And we got another loading pin on the floor, and it's attached to a pulley system actually. Okay, this is just kind of a homemade type pulley. And it goes up here. It's just attached to this bar I have up here, okay, just above your head. And this pulley kind of swivels a little bit, okay? Attached to that is I have a carabiner, okay, and then just the same towel that I've been using for other exercises. Let me show you this from a couple of different angles so you can see how it's gonna look. Okay, you guys, so here I am at the pulley, okay? I'm at the towel here, and we're gonna be using my right arm, okay? And we're gonna be using the hook position, and we're gonna be working on your ulnar flexion from the hook position using the box. I'm gonna have to show you this from a couple of different angles, okay? Let me show you how I grab the towel from this angle, and then I'll show you how I do it on the box. Okay, so this towel is just hanging down from the carabiner. Okay, so I'm going to take an underhand grip, and then I'm gonna turn it into a hook position. Okay, so watch this. Okay, so I'm grabbing the towel from underneath, okay? And then I'm going to turn, and then I'm turning my hand in, okay? And then I'm gonna go get on the box. You have to see this from the other angle, but I wanna show that one more time, okay? So towel's hanging straight down. This is my right hand, okay? I'm grabbing underneath, I'm grabbing reverse, okay? I'm gonna flip this around, okay? And then I'm turning my hand into a hook position, and from there we're going to be using the box and we'll be working on some of that ulnar flexion. Let me show you from another angle. Okay guys, so let's look at exercise number 2 from the box. Okay, so from the other side. Okay, so here's the pulley behind me. I got my towel here. Okay, so we're going to be using the top of the box to do our ulnar flexion. And remember, we're working on that ulnar flexion aspect of your hook. Okay, this is the only motion we're doing with the towel. Okay, so this is the motion. That's all we're trying to do, okay? Just this downward pressure. Okay, so you're gonna see me how I grab the towel here, and then I'll pull it right in front of the camera and I'll show you how the exercise works. Okay, once again, we got our stability box. We're not gonna have our arm all the way down the box on this one. I think this one works a little bit better if your hand is just on top, okay? And you can almost think of it like you're in almost a traditional arm wrestling hook position with your arm right up on top of the table. This will feel pretty natural. Okay, so here we go. Okay, so I got my towel behind me. I have the pulley on the floor with the plate loader, okay, or the loading pin. Okay, so here we go. Okay, so really important, you got to take a good grip. So you're taking reverse grip, okay? And then I'm going to come in and hook. So watch my hand. Okay, so now we're in an offensive hook position, okay? Just like you were on the arm wrestling table, my elbow is stabilized. I'm turned into a nice offensive hook position, okay? And from there, we're just going to do that motion, down, down, down. Okay, so from the side, if I turn that, I like this direction. I like having the cable off to the side so it doesn't run into my body, okay? But just so you can see how my hand looks, I'm gonna turn the box, and you'll see me do this again. So once again, reverse grip. I flip the towel over, okay? Okay, that's how it should look, okay? And the exercise is really simple. Like I said, it's just going to be with a hook, holding that hook position. Make sure at the bottom of the movement, your knuckles are directly to the side and or slightly down. That's gonna work your wrist flexors, okay? Okay, you guys, so just to cap the video, remember that your ulnar flexion muscles are extremely important, and not a lot of arm wrestlers spend anywhere near enough time working on those muscles. Okay, remember, just one more time, remember that your ability to maintain your offensive hook position is often predicated by the strength that you have in your ulnar flexors. Okay, so if your ulnar flexion's weak, your offensive hook can quickly turn into a defensive hook, which can also turn into a loss. Okay, so if your ulnar flexors are strong, you're gonna have a much better chance of winning at the arm wrestling table. I'll see you guys later.